But I was working on this convention, and one of the first things I learned was that you shouldn't try to be chair and also run the convention at the same time. I was very fortunate that I had volunteers to help me out to get that job done. Ed, Lopez, Linda, Laura, we talked some earlier about the volunteers who helped make this whole thing work and be possible. That's one of the things that I learned in the last term as chairman, was how important it is not to try to do everything yourself. This is one of the problems we have. You know, Matt talked about volunteer burnout. We have volunteer burnout when you're a small organization, you don't have enough people to do the stuff that needs to be done, but yet you have people who realize there's a burning need for those things to get done. And some of us on the board have been felt compelled to do much more work than we have to. But what I will say is that what I bring to the board, what I have brought to the board, is a real commitment to the job and willingness to do the work when it has to be done. And you know, when you call me, I'm there. When you need something, I'm willing to come and do it for you. I want to provide all the service that I can as a chairman, but I'd much rather be providing that service in a different environment than we're currently doing it in. I think that what we need to do is reevaluate the structure of the organization in certain ways. We are a unique kind of organization for the Republican Party. We are a combination of both a grassroots organization and a national political activism organization. And they're very different things in some ways. And I think we can do both jobs better if we admit that they are different jobs and that we need to have a two-tier kind of structure to address them. And I talked about this in my written, overly long written piece in the program, but I just wanted to sort of talk about the hardcore implementation of these ideas. What I think we need to do as an organization is become more professional, and do that by dividing the responsibilities of the national board, which should be primarily advisory, inspirational, and a face for the organization. National board members should be the people who are out there talking about the organization, hopefully getting them on TV, writing articles and op-eds and letters to the editor. They should be our advocates, public advocates for the organization, and they shouldn't have too much other responsibility except for oversight of certain areas of the way the organization runs. As a small organization, we were stuck with the national board having to do things, you know, everything had to be done by the same guys. We're not going to be that kind of small organization in the future, at least we don't want to be. We need to adjust to grow for the kind of growth we've already experienced so far in the last couple of years, and the even greater growth that could come in the future. If we can make the right adjustments to accommodate that potential growth that we see ahead of us, to ride this wave that we're on, then we'll do things like create a national organizational structure which has professional people working for us. Fundraising that would finance that kind of professional staff. We don't need to have a huge office. We don't need to be the National Republican Senatorial Committee with 150 people sitting in an office making phone calls and writing memos and, you know, jabbering back and forth about things in the little particle cubicles. But what we do need is to gradually work our way into a system where we have, at least initially, one or two people who are working part-time with a paid salary, raising money so we have the money to pay them. Working in various areas of activism, so we have people whose jobs are dedicated to activism, to reaching out and promoting certain issues that we're concerned about. And we have people whose job is dedicated to providing personal support to the chapters, so when the chapter needs something, they don't have to go through the chairman, they don't have to go to the vice chairman, they don't have to go through the secretary to get what they need. There's a person whose job is actually to provide them with what they need, to run the store, to run chapter support, to send out the packages. That's a job which you don't need to have your organizational leaders doing. You need to have people working for them to do that. And I have a plan, I think it'll work, to raise the money that's necessary to make this transition, to create this two-tier organization, which will free up the states to be much more autonomous by taking some of the burdensome responsibilities that are currently resting in the national board and putting them into a neutral, independent organization that's working for the national board and for the states. It's basically RLC admin, essentially. And that administrative entity will be able to go out and increase our fundraising, because there'll be people devoted to fundraising. And I already have people online who I think will be able to do some of these jobs. I know a couple of fundraisers who I think will be available to help us with this. We'll have people online do some of the administrative work so that all that work gets done more efficiently, more quickly, and at a higher level of performance. And once we get a couple of people working on some of this stuff for the national board, starting out part-time, we should be able to increase the level of performance, increase the amount of revenue we generate. We can take things like the store, for example, and turn it into a revenue-generating machine. I saw this done at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. CEI took something called Bureaucrash and began marketing t-shirts and materials having to do with their issues, and they did extraordinarily well, making $200,000 a year until they decided to shut it down because it was too controversial. But controversy is something we shouldn't be afraid of. We can be out there putting those good ideas out there, in the public through merchandising the RLC idea, merchandising the idea of a new idea of the Republican Party. And sure, things like new logos or picking a logo would be a big part of that. But the most important thing is developing the resources, the funding, and the ability to do that kind of thing. We want the state chapters to be given all the support that they can be given. People ask, what does National do? What National does is National is out there giving you guys whatever you need to share experience back and forth from one chapter to another, take one chapter's good idea, produce it as a product or produce it as some sort of a resource, and get it out to the other chapters. I mean, that's mostly what National does. We're facilitators more than anything else. And we can facilitate better if we have facilitators facilitating and leaders leading and chapters dealing with the chapter concerns of individual states. If that was all divided up more responsibly and more intelligently, I think we'd be a much more effective organization. And that's the kind of growth that we can go through to become the kind of organization we should be, the dominant force of the liberty movement that we really ought to be. And I've already done some work in that direction, but there's only so much I can do as chairman. And I want to delegate as much of this as possible to as many people as possible. And get more people involved, people from the chapters. That's where our talent pool is, draw it from our chapters, get them involved in the day-to-day operation of a much more serious organization. I used my example in some cases when I talk about this kind of thing, FreedomWorks. FreedomWorks is exactly what we don't want to become. FreedomWorks is a top-down political organization which has been very successful in some ways, but it doesn't have the grassroots organization. We're the opposite in some ways. We're a grassroots organization which is developing that top structure. But if you develop them from the bottom up instead of from the top down, FreedomWorks held a rally here in Austin last week, and at the FreedomWorks rally, they had 5 guys on their panel and 5 guys in the audience, because they didn't really have that network of grassroots support. Well, if we hold an event here in Austin with the RLC of Texas, we may have 1 guy talking, but we can get 40 or 50 or 60 people to show up pretty much on a moment's notice to hear what he has to say. That's the kind of grassroots organization we want to be, but you also have to have that top-level structure. And that's where we've really come up short, is in having people whose job is dedicated to doing things like getting us on TV, getting us newspaper coverage, getting us the real exposure that we need to grow ourselves to the next level. And we need people whose jobs are dedicated to doing that in a much more serious, much more professional way. And that's all there is to it. If we want to go on to be the next generation of the liberty movement, the leaders of the liberty movement, we have to up our game. And I am dedicated to using whatever resources we have, to finding new resources, to raising money, to using my background in business, my connections that I developed in politics, to do everything that we possibly can do to raise the RLC to be the nation-leading organization for liberty that I think it can be.